You're watching Pistoria, where history lives. Subscribe now. And join us as we uncover the turning point that began a revolution, the year when rebellion became independence. Autumn, 1775. The leaves are turning in Britain and her American colonies, but beneath the calm, a storm is gathering. King George III has made up his mind. The colonies that defy his crown must be punished. To him, the men in rebellion are not patriots, but dangerous and ill-designing men, who forget the allegiance which they owe to the power that has protected them. In London, maps of America covered the tables of the king's advisors. Reports flood in from Boston and New York of mobs, militias, and open defiance. The king demands more troops, more ships, and orders the recruitment of 18,000 German auxiliaries to crush the uprising. Across Britain and Ireland, ports stirred to life. At Portsmouth, Cork, and Plymouth, 20,000 soldiers prepare to sail, the largest expeditionary force the Empire has ever sent across the Atlantic. In America, the Second Continental Congress knows the blow will soon fall. General George Washington commands the main Patriot Army, besieging the British in Boston. Much of the countryside supports the rebellion, guided by local committees of correspondence and safety. But the British still hold their loyal colonies in Florida, in the West Indies, and in Canada. Canada, newly taken from France just 12 years earlier, could be key. Congress believes the French-speaking Canadians might yet rise against their British masters. And so, a bold decision is made to strike north and liberate the oppressed inhabitants of Canada. Leading this northern expedition is General Richard Montgomery, a talented Irish officer with barely 2,000 men under his command. In September, his army lays siege to Fort St. Jean, the gateway to Canada. For 6 relentless weeks, cannon thunder across the frozen fields until the fort surrenders. The road to Quebec lies open. But Montgomery's army is now a shadow of itself, ravaged by sickness, desertion, and exhaustion. Even so, he marches on, out toward destiny. Meanwhile, another force moves through the wilderness. Colonel Benedict Arnold, daring, ambitious, and restless, leads 2,000 men on a brutal march through forests, rivers, and swamps to join Montgomery. Many turn back, starved and frostbitten, but Arnold presses on. By early December, the survivors reach Quebec, uniting with Montgomery's weary army. Their total force, barely 1,200 men, Quebec stands proud above the icy St. Lawrence, the strongest fortress in North America. Inside, Governor Guy Carleton has fortified his walls and rallied militia. The Americans cannot wait. Winter deepens, their enlistments expire soon, so they decide to gamble everything on one desperate assault. In the early hours of New Year's Eve, 1775, under a raging blizzard, they attack. The snow blinds their path. Cannon fire splits the darkness. Men fall in the streets. Montgomery is struck and killed instantly. Arnold is wounded and carried from the field. The assault collapses. Hundreds of patriots are captured. Quebec stands firm. What began as a bold strike for liberty ends in frozen defeat. In the months that follow, the remnants of Arnold's army cling to life outside Quebec. Smallpox spreads through the ranks. Supplies vanish. By spring, the survivors limp back to American lines, leaving Canada in British hands once more. But in Boston, hope burns anew. A 25-year-old bookseller turned officer, Henry Knox, accomplishes the impossible. He drags 15 heavy cannons from Fort Ticonderoga to Boston, across 300 miles of snow and ice. It is one of the greatest logistical feats in military history. General Washington, elated, orders the guns placed on Dorchester Heights overlooking the British fleet. Overnight, his men fortified the position. By dawn, British General Howe stares up at a fortress bristling with cannon. Boston is lost. Snow and wind prevent a counterattack. Within days, the British evacuate the city, sailing for Halifax. The siege of Boston is over. After 10 long months, Washington has his first victory. Church bells ring across the colonies. For a moment, the dream of liberty feels real. Yet not all Americans share the joy. 1 in 5 remain loyal to the crown, the Loyalists. Some are recent immigrants with family in Britain. Some are Anglicans, faithful to their king. Others simply fear chaos more than tyranny. Patriot mobs grow bolder, and loyalists flee. Families divide brother against brother, father against son. The war is no longer just against Britain. It is a war for the soul of America itself. In the South, the British still hope to rally loyalists and restore royal authority, but their efforts end in disaster. At Moores Creek Bridge in North Carolina, a loyalist force, mostly Scottish Highlanders, charges with broadswords flashing. Patriot muskets cut them down. The rebellion's enemies are crushed. A few months later, Admiral Parker attacks Charleston, South Carolina. But the soft palmetto wood of the rebel fort absorbs British cannon fire. The British fleet is shattered. South remains free for now. By July 1776, the last British ships have withdrawn from the American coast. The Patriot Army marches through cheering towns, their confidence soaring. And in Philadelphia, a new idea takes hold. Not just rebellion, but independence. A pamphlet called Common Sense, written by Thomas Paine, spreads like wildfire. It mocks monarchy, praises liberty, and speaks to every farmer and tradesman in language they understand. The cause of America, Paine writes, is in great measure the cause of all mankind. The people listen, the tide turns. On July 2, 1776, the Continental Congress votes for independence. 2 days later, they approve a written declaration. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. 56 men sign their names, pledging their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. Across the colonies, celebrations erupt. In New York, a statue of King George is torn down, melted into 40,000 bullets. America is born. But the war is far from over. For across the Atlantic, the might of Britain is gathering once again. The king will not give up his colonies without a fight. Soon, a fleet of 400 ships and 32,000 soldiers will descend upon New York, the largest expedition in British history. The struggle for America's future is only beginning. You've been watching Pistoria, where history lives. If you enjoyed this story of courage, chaos, and revolution, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. New episodes of Pistoria bring you the untold stories that shaped our world.